Stop for a moment, because what you are about to hear will completely change the way you move, the way people read you, the way they fear you, and the way they respect you. You are about to understand why silence is not weakness, why silence is not passivity, why silence is not surrender. Silence is strategy, silence is power, silence is psychological dominance. Machiavelli believed silence was one of the strongest weapons a person could use, not because silence hides who you are, but because silence exposes everyone else. The loud reveal themselves, the emotional expose themselves, the reactive show their fear, the impulsive reveal their weakness, but the silent one, the one who watches, the one who observes, the one who speaks slowly and intentionally, that person becomes dangerous, because no one knows what they think. No one knows what they plan. No one knows what they will do next, and people fear what they cannot predict. Machiavelli knew that silence creates uncertainty, and uncertainty creates psychological tension, and psychological tension creates power. This is why the silent person often becomes the most respected in the room, not because they dominate physically, not because they intimidate verbally, but because their presence forces everyone else to adjust. Silence makes people talk more. Silence makes them reveal more. Silence makes them guess more, and in guessing they expose their insecurities, their intentions, their fears, their agendas. Machiavelli understood humans reveal more through their reactions than through their words, and silence triggers those reactions instantly. When you stay silent, people begin performing in front of you without realizing it. They try to impress you. They try to fill the space. They try to justify themselves. They try to explain things you never asked for. They reveal truths they never planned to share. You learn everything, and they learn nothing about you. That imbalance is what makes silence dangerous, because silence puts you in a position of psychological superiority. You see without being seen. You read without being read. You understand without being understood. You know without being known. Silence creates informational advantage, and Machiavelli believed that informational advantage was the foundation of power. The person with more information wins before the conflict even begins. But silence does more than reveal others. Silence also protects you. It protects your emotions. It protects your intentions. It protects your weaknesses. It protects your insecurities. It protects your boundaries. When you are silent, no one knows what you fear. No one knows what you desire. No one knows what you expect. No one knows what triggers you. And when people cannot locate your vulnerability, they cannot attack it. Machiavelli observed that the easiest person to control is the one who speaks too much, the one who explains too much, the one who reveals too much, the one who reacts too much, because every word becomes a weapon that can be used against them. Silence gives people nothing to use, nothing to twist, nothing to manipulate, nothing to exploit, and that makes you untouchable. But the most powerful part of silence is this: silence forces others to respect you, not because you demand respect, but because silence makes people feel evaluated, judged, observed. When someone speaks and you remain calm and quiet, they subconsciously feel the weight of their own words. They feel exposed. They feel seen. They feel their own insecurity rising. They feel pressure to justify themselves. And the moment someone feels pressure around you, you have already gained the psychological upper hand. Machiavelli believed that the person who makes others feel watched holds the true authority. Silence creates that feeling effortlessly. Silence also changes your energy. When you speak less, every word becomes heavier. Every statement becomes intentional. Every response feels calculated. People begin thinking twice before interrupting you. They begin waiting for your perspective. They begin valuing your presence because you do not waste it. Silence separates the powerful from the emotional, the grounded from the chaotic, the strategic from the reactive, and this separation creates aura. Aura is the quiet force people feel when you walk into a room. Aura is what makes them sit up straighter. Aura is what makes them lower their voice. Aura is what makes them choose their words carefully. Aura is the invisible presence Machiavelli admired in the most effective leaders, And aura begins with silence, because silence is the birthplace of self-control, and self-control is the foundation of respect. But to truly master silence the way Machiavelli intended, you must understand the deeper psychological mechanisms behind it. Why silence makes people confess. Why silence makes them fear disappointing you. Why silence makes them treat you as someone above them in the social hierarchy. And those mechanisms are what you will learn next. Because the next part reveals how silence alters human behavior, exposes hidden motives, and makes you someone people fear to lie to, fear to manipulate, and fear to disrespect. And now that you understand silence creates psychological tension and informational advantage, you must learn how silence directly alters human behavior. Because silence is not just the absence of speech. Silence is an emotional mirror. When you stay silent, people begin reflecting their own insecurities, their own fears, their own guilt, their own intentions. Machiavelli watched this happen in political courts constantly. When a powerful figure stayed silent, everyone around them began overcalculating, overthinking, overspeaking. And in their attempts to interpret the silence, they exposed parts of themselves they normally hid. This is the first mechanism of silence. Silence makes people uncomfortable with their own thoughts. Most people cannot sit with themselves. Their mind becomes noisy. Their insecurities rise to the surface. Their fears become louder. Their ego begins demanding validation. And because they cannot silence their inner chaos, they try to silence it externally by talking, explaining, justifying, filling the air with noise, but the silent person remains still. And that stillness makes the other person feel transparent, vulnerable, seen. This is psychological dominance without a single word. The second mechanism is projection. In silence, people begin projecting their assumptions onto you. If they fear judgment, they assume you are judging them. If they feel insecure, they assume you see their flaws. If they feel guilty, they assume you know their secrets. If they feel inferior, they assume you think less of them. Silence forces people to reveal who they are, not who you are. Machiavelli believed that the silent ruler collected more secrets than the loud one because people expose their inner state when they do not know what the other person is thinking. And this silence-based projection reveals more truth than interrogation ever could. The third mechanism is hierarchy recalibration. Humans subconsciously determine social hierarchy based on who reacts to who. If you react quickly, you are seen as lower. If you react emotionally, you are seen as lower. If you react impulsively, you are seen as lower. But if you respond slowly, calmly, deliberately, or sometimes not at all, people automatically elevate you in their internal hierarchy. They begin treating you as someone above them emotionally, someone above them psychologically, someone above them socially. Silence increases perceived status, and perceived status creates respect. Machiavelli noticed that the most feared individuals said the least, because silence creates ambiguity. And ambiguity creates power. The fourth mechanism is that silence forces truth to the surface. When you ask a question and then stay silent, people fill the silence with more honesty than they intended. They reveal details accidentally. They confess things indirectly. They say too much because silence pressures them into over-explaining. Machiavelli used silence to gain political intelligence from enemies and allies alike. He knew silence was a truth extractor, a confession trigger, a psychological lever, and you can use it the same way. The fifth mechanism is emotional disarmament. When someone is angry and you respond with silence, their anger collapses. When someone tries to provoke you and you stay calm, their power dissolves. When someone insults you and you show no reaction, their ego deflates. Silence wins emotional battles because silence reveals which person is actually in control. The reactive person always loses. The calm person always wins. Machiavelli wrote that controlling your reaction is more powerful than controlling your opponent, because silence makes them fight themselves instead of you. The sixth mechanism is fear of misinterpretation. When you are silent, people begin wondering what you think, what you noticed, what you concluded, whether they impressed you, whether they disappointed you, whether you saw something they tried to hide, and this uncertainty makes them cautious. They start choosing their words carefully. They start adjusting their behavior. They start avoiding disrespect. They start treating you with more care. Silence makes people self-regulate in your presence. Machiavelli believed that fear of the unknown is more powerful than fear of punishment, and silence creates exactly that. The seventh mechanism is magnetic pull. Silence draws attention. When everyone in the room is speaking loudly, the silent person becomes the visual center. People glance at you. They study you. They try to predict what you are thinking. They wait for your opinions. They anticipate your reactions. Your silence becomes a gravitational force. Machiavelli observed that power grows in the space others create around your silence, because silence makes people lean in closer both physically and psychologically. The eighth mechanism is emotional unpredictability. Silence makes you unpredictable because people cannot read your emotional state. They cannot tell whether you agree or disagree, whether you are calm or angry, whether you are judging them or observing them. And unpredictability creates psychological caution. Caution creates respect. Machiavelli knew that the unpredictable leader was feared because people could never prepare for his response, and silence gives you this advantage instantly. The ninth mechanism is authority by restraint. The strongest person in any situation is the one who does the least, the one who does not need to argue, the one who does not need to prove anything, the one who does not need to react emotionally, the one who speaks only when necessary. Silence shows restraint, and restraint shows dominance. Machiavelli believed that the ruler who wasted words wasted power, and the ruler who conserved words conserved authority. And now you can see why silence is not passive. Silence is active. Silence is strategic. Silence is powerful. And now that you understand how silence alters human behavior, the next part will reveal how silence becomes a weapon, a shield, a filter, and a psychological advantage you can use in conflict, relationships, negotiation, leadership, and everyday life. And now that you understand how silence alters human behavior, you must learn how silence becomes a weapon. Not a weapon of aggression, not a weapon of cruelty, but a weapon of psychological precision. A weapon that protects you, strengthens you, and exposes others without you lifting a finger. Machiavelli believed that the most dangerous power a person could have was the ability to influence outcomes without appearing to interfere. And silence gives you exactly that kind of invisible influence. The first way silence becomes a weapon is through emotional redirection. When someone wants a reaction from you, when they want to provoke you, when they want drama, when they want conflict, when they want to pull you into an emotional trap, silence denies them what they want. And when you deny someone the reaction they seek, their strategy collapses instantly. They become frustrated, they become confused, they become desperate, and in their desperation, they expose their true intentions. Silence turns their emotional attack back onto themselves. This is why Machiavelli believed the calm person always wins the emotional war. The second way silence becomes a weapon is through power positioning. In any argument, negotiation, or conflict, the person who speaks the least always appears more in control, because silence signals confidence. Silence signals certainty. Silence signals superiority. Silence signals that you are not threatened, and the other person subconsciously adjusts their behavior to match the perceived hierarchy. They justify themselves more. They explain more. They negotiate more. They bend more, while you conserve energy and maintain authority simply by speaking less. Machiavelli saw this tactic used by kings during negotiations. The king who stayed silent held more power than the one who argued fiercely, because silence creates leverage. The third way silence becomes a weapon is through strategic withdrawal. When a situation is chaotic, when a conversation is heated, when an argument is escalating, when emotions are rising. Silence allows you to step back psychologically even while still being present physically. You withdraw your energy. You withdraw your participation. You withdraw your emotional response. And the moment you withdraw, the other person loses their opponent and is left fighting themselves. Machiavelli wrote that an opponent without an enemy destroys himself, and silence creates that effect perfectly. The fourth way silence becomes a weapon is through making people reveal more than they intended. People hate unanswered questions. They hate unfilled space. They hate psychological uncertainty. Silence pushes them to talk more, to clarify more, to justify more, to confess more, to reveal their motives. If you wait long enough in silence, most people will give you the exact information you need. Machiavelli used this constantly. He knew that silence was a more effective interrogation tool than threats, because silence forces people to fill the vacuum with truth, even when they don't want to. The fifth way silence becomes a weapon is through protecting your weaknesses. When you speak too much, when you react too fast, when you reveal too deeply, you give people access points to attack you. But silence hides your vulnerabilities. It hides your fears. It hides your insecurities. It hides your doubts. It hides your emotional scars. And when no one knows where to strike, no one can hurt you. Machiavelli believed that the person whose weaknesses are invisible is invincible, and silence creates that invisibility. The sixth way silence becomes a weapon is through boundary enforcement. When someone crosses a line, when someone disrespects you, when someone violates a boundary, most people respond with anger. They explain, they argue, they try to make the other person understand. But silence does the opposite. Silence communicates, I am done. I am unavailable. You will not get a reaction from me. You will not get access to me. You will not get my energy. Silence is the strongest consequence you can give someone. It is the consequence that requires no aggression and no emotion. It is the consequence Machiavelli believed created the deepest psychological impact. The seventh way silence becomes a weapon is through emotional unpredictability. When you become silent in the right moments, people cannot predict your next move. They cannot predict your thoughts. They cannot predict your decisions. Silence makes you unreadable, and unreadability creates fear, because people cannot prepare for a response they cannot foresee. Machiavelli believed that predictable people were easy to defeat, but unpredictable people were impossible to control. Silence gives you that unpredictability without effort. The eighth way silence becomes a weapon is through energy conservation. Loud people exhaust themselves. Emotional people drain themselves. Reactive people waste their strength, but silent people conserve their power. They spend less. They reveal less. They lose less. And when conflict comes, they have more energy, more clarity, more emotional control than their opponents. Machiavelli believed that conserving strength was more important than displaying it, and silence is strength conservation. The ninth way silence becomes a weapon is through social contrast. When everyone else is speaking, when everyone else is arguing, when everyone else is over-explaining, your silence sets you apart. It makes you look more composed, more intelligent, more controlled, more disciplined, more dangerous. Machiavelli knew that the silent figure in a chaotic room becomes the symbol of authority, the calm center, the psychological superior, the one everyone instinctively looks toward. And now that you understand how silence acts as a weapon, the next part of your transformation begins. Because silence is not only used in conflict, not only used in dominance, not only used in power struggles. Silence can build relationships, strengthen influence, increase respect, and make people gravitate toward you without force. And that is what you will learn next. The part where silence becomes not just a weapon, but a magnet. And now that you understand silence as a weapon, you must learn how silence becomes a magnet. Because power is not only about defeating opponents. Power is also about attracting the right people, the right opportunities, the right conversations, and the right respect. Machiavelli believed that true power is not taken, It is drawn toward you. And silence is one of the strongest gravitational fields a human being can carry. The first way silence becomes a magnet is by creating intrigue. People are naturally curious about what they cannot understand. When you speak less, people wonder what you're thinking. When you reveal little, people become invested in uncovering the rest. When you share your emotions selectively, people want to earn your openness. Mystery increases perceived value, and silence is the foundation of mystery. Machiavelli noticed that the most influential men and women of his time were the ones who never revealed their full hand, because silence makes others lean forward while you lean back. The second way silence becomes a magnet is by making your words heavier. In a world full of unnecessary noise, the quiet person stands out. When you finally speak, people listen. They process your words differently. They take them seriously. They assume you speak only after thinking. They assume your silence means observation. They assume your restraint means intelligence, and your words begin to carry weight that others' words do not. Machiavelli believed that the less you speak, the more powerful each sentence becomes. Silence amplifies your voice. The third way silence becomes a magnet is by showing emotional control. Emotional control is extremely attractive, not just romantically, but socially and professionally. People gravitate toward those who are calm under pressure. They trust those who do not break easily. They respect those who do not lose themselves in chaos. And silence is the clearest signal of emotional composure. When everyone else reacts loudly and you remain silent, you become the emotional anchor in the room. Machiavelli wrote that humans instinctively follow those who appear calm in storms, because calmness signals leadership. The fourth way silence becomes a magnet is through selective engagement. When you do not engage with everyone, when you do not laugh at everything, when you do not give your attention freely, people begin to value your presence more. They work harder to earn your time. They become more respectful in their interactions. This scarcity creates attraction. Machiavelli believed that controlled scarcity increases influence, and silence naturally creates this effect without manipulation. The fifth way silence attracts is by enhancing your observation skills. The silent person learns more than the loud one. You pick up subtle details. You catch inconsistencies. You sense emotional shifts. You notice patterns. You understand people on a deeper psychological level because you listen more than you speak. And when people feel understood, they are drawn to you. They share more. They trust more. They connect more. They open up more. Silence creates understanding, and understanding creates connection. The sixth way silence becomes magnetic is through your rhythm. Silence slows you down in a fast world. It makes you appear intentional. It makes everything about you seem deliberate. The way you move, the way you listen, the way you speak, the way you pause before replying. Machiavelli believed that slow, controlled pacing was a sign of confidence and power. Silence gives you that pacing. People follow the rhythm of those who do not rush, because rushing shows fear while calmness shows security. The seventh way silence becomes a magnet is by revealing authenticity. Loud people often perform. They exaggerate. They attempt to impress. They seek validation. Silence removes performance. Silence exposes realness. Silence communicates confidence without exhibition, and people gravitate toward authentic energy because it feels rare. Machiavelli wrote that authenticity, when combined with restraint, becomes irresistible because it cannot be faked. The eighth way silence becomes magnetic is through emotional safety. People feel safer around someone who listens more than they speak, someone who does not judge instantly, someone who does not dominate conversations, someone who does not make everything about themselves. Silence gives others space to be themselves, and people are drawn to those who make them feel safe to express. This is influence built not from fear but from comfort. The ninth way silence creates magnetism is through unpredictability. When you are silent, people cannot predict what you will do next. They cannot prepare responses. They cannot manipulate you easily. They cannot anticipate your moves. This unpredictability makes you interesting, compelling, hard to ignore. Machiavelli believed unpredictability kept opponents cautious and admirers fascinated. Silence gives you that dual effect. The 10th way silence becomes a magnet is through the aura it creates. Aura is the invisible presence people feel when someone of quiet strength enters the room. It is the energy that shifts conversations, the energy that makes people sit up straighter, the energy that gives your presence weight. Silence builds this aura slowly and steadily. The less noise you make, the more space your presence occupies. Machiavelli admired leaders who could command a room without saying a word. And silence is how that aura is built. The 11th way silence attracts is by reducing conflict. Loudness invites arguments. Reactivity triggers escalation, but silence diffuses tension. It stops arguments before they grow. It prevents unnecessary drama. It signals maturity. People prefer being around those who do not amplify chaos. And silence is one of the strongest de-escalation tools a person can use. The 12th way silence becomes a magnet is by creating emotional neutrality. When people cannot clearly categorize you, when they cannot label you quickly, when they cannot define your emotional state, they begin to pay closer attention. They feel a subtle pull, because neutrality is intriguing. And Machiavelli wrote that neutrality was often the strongest negotiating position because it kept others uncertain. The 13th way silence becomes magnetic is by giving you more control over conversations. When you speak last, you speak with knowledge. When you speak last, you speak with leverage. When you speak last, you speak with clarity. Silence places you at the end of conversations psychologically, giving you the advantage of seeing the whole dynamic before contributing. The 14th way silence creates attraction is by enhancing your perceived intelligence. People assume the quiet one thinks more deeply, observes more accurately, understands more clearly. Whether this is true or not, the perception alone increases your influence. Machiavelli believed perception often mattered more than reality, and silence shapes that perception powerfully. The 15th way silence becomes a magnet is by strengthening your identity. Because when you remain silent at the right times, you prove to yourself that you are in control. You are not ruled by impulse. You are not moved by insecurity. You are not driven by fear. You choose your reactions with intention, and this internal mastery radiates outward. It becomes an aura, a presence, a psychological force that others feel without explanation. And now that you understand how silence becomes magnetic, you are ready for the final transformation. Because the last part will reveal how silence becomes a lifestyle, a permanent part of your identity. A source of strength, influence, protection, and power that follows you everywhere you go. And now that you understand silence as a weapon, a filter, a shield, a magnet, you are ready for the final transformation. The transformation where silence becomes your lifestyle, not something you use occasionally, not something you perform strategically, but something that becomes part of your identity. Something that shapes the way you move through life, the way you carry yourself, the way people perceive you, and the way you command respect without effort. Because silence, when practiced consistently, becomes more than a strategy. It becomes a presence people cannot ignore, a presence that reshapes every room you walk into, a presence that communicates strength before you speak. Machiavelli believed that the rare individuals who could remain silent in a noisy world were the ones who rose to power faster than anyone else. Because silence sets you apart in a way nothing else can. The first step in making silence your lifestyle is adopting emotional discipline as your default setting. Emotional discipline means you no longer respond instantly to anything. Not an insult, not an opportunity, not a threat, not a question, not a provocation. You pause, you observe, you assess. You give the situation space. And in that pause is where your power lives, because a person who pauses gains clarity, and a person who gains clarity becomes dangerous. Machiavelli believed that the ruler who reacts last wins. Silence gives you that timing. The second step is mastering conversational restraint. Conversational restraint means you speak only when your words add value. You do not fill silence. You do not overshare. You do not explain unnecessarily. You do not correct people out of insecurity. You let people reveal themselves while you protect your own inner world. This restraint makes you appear wiser, stronger, more competent, and more grounded. Machiavelli wrote that unnecessary speech was the fastest way to ruin alliances and expose vulnerabilities. Silence eliminates that risk. The third step is developing a calm face. A calm face does not mean empty. It means composed, unbothered, grounded. A face that does not reveal fear. A face that does not reveal insecurity. A face that does not reveal emotional instability. This neutrality protects you. It keeps your private emotions private. It keeps your thoughts hidden. It keeps your power intact. Machiavelli knew that visible fear invited attack, but visible calmness discouraged it, and silence reinforces this calmness. The fourth step is practicing selective presence. Selective presence means you do not show up everywhere. You do not insert yourself into every conversation. You do not attend every argument. You do not participate in every conflict. You choose where you give your presence, and because your presence is selective, it becomes valuable. People feel it more. People notice it more. People respect it more. Machiavelli believed that rulers who were seen too often lost their mystique, but those who appeared selectively gained immense power. The fifth step is emotional non-reactivity. Emotional non-reactivity means you do not let people pull you into their emotional storms. You do not absorb their anger. You do not mirror their chaos. You do not respond to their insecurity. You remain still when they are loud. You remain calm when they are chaotic. You remain poised when they are emotional. Silence supports this non-reactivity, because silence is what keeps your emotions from escaping too quickly. Machiavelli believed that emotional stability was more intimidating than physical strength. And silence strengthens emotional stability. The sixth step is strategic withdrawal. Strategic withdrawal means you know when to step back instead of stepping forward, when the argument is pointless, when the person is not worth your words, when the environment is toxic, when the energy is draining, when the room is beneath your standards. Silence makes withdrawal look intentional rather than avoidant, and intentional withdrawal commands respect because it communicates self-worth. Machiavelli wrote that the ability to walk away without fear was a ruler's greatest advantage. Silence gives you that courage. The seventh step is mastering the silent expectation. Silent expectation means you hold standards without announcing them. You expect respect without demanding it. You expect honesty without lecturing. You expect effort without begging. You expect consistency without threatening. People feel your expectations through your behavior, not your words. Through your silence when they fall short. Through your distance when they cross a boundary. Through your calmness when they try to provoke you. Silence is how strong expectations are communicated. Machiavelli believed that silent standards were more powerful than spoken threats because they require others to self-correct. The eighth step is embracing the power of watching more than speaking. When you watch more, you learn more. You understand people on a deeper psychological level. You see their motives. You catch their patterns. You interpret their emotional state. You anticipate their decisions. You predict their behavior. Silence gives you this observational advantage. Machiavelli believed that the ruler who knew more than everyone else controlled the narrative, and silence helps you collect information without alerting others. The ninth step is building a reputation for calm strength. Reputation is everything, and silence builds a reputation faster than words ever can. People begin describing you as composed, as grounded, as intimidating, as mysterious, as serious, as someone who cannot be manipulated, someone who cannot be provoked, someone who sees more than they say, someone who listens more than they speak, someone who carries weight without noise. Machiavelli knew that power flows toward those who appear unshakable, and silence makes you unshakable. The 10th and final step is integrating silence into your identity so deeply that it becomes your natural response instead of a forced technique. When silence becomes instinct, you no longer need to think about strategy. You simply become the strategy. You become the person who speaks only when it matters, who moves only with intention, who reacts only with clarity, who distances themselves quietly, who commands respect naturally, who intimidates effortlessly. And this is the moment silence truly makes you dangerous, because danger is not in aggression. Danger is in unpredictability, in emotional control, in stillness, in restraint, in hidden depth, in the power people feel but cannot explain. Machiavelli understood that the most dangerous person in any room is not the loudest. It is the quiet one, the one who watches, the one who listens, the one who waits, the one who cannot be read. And now that person is you. You have mastered silence as a strategy, a shield, a weapon, a magnet, and a lifestyle. And with this mastery, you carry a form of power that moves quietly, strikes deeply, and lasts forever.